let people in as they show up. I appreciate it, Rosie. Um, Thank you everybody for showing up this afternoon. I want to go ahead and first off apologize for some of the confusion around the timing and dates of this. My attempt to try and get everybody informed and try and get the information out there. There was some confusion about the date, so I apologize about that. I'm glad that everybody was able to join us tonight for this. Now, those of you might recall that about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had a meeting about this property with the same developer. They kind of paused on that for a while and worked on other things, but now they're wanting to come back and revisit their proposal, and that's why we're here today. I'm going to go ahead and invite Mr. Patricio to go ahead and share his screen if he should be able. I made him co-host to allow him the opportunity to reintroduce himself to everyone and to show his presentation. I'll ask that everyone please keep your microphones off until the end of his presentation.
We don't want to see it.
At that time, then we will have questions. If you're not comfortable coming on the microphone for your question, feel free to put a question in the chat, and myself or Rosie will try to get to those. So with that, Patricio, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you and go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you, Councilor Bradford. I appreciate you. And thank you everyone as well for joining and being a part of the call. I also wanted to introduce you guys to my business partner on this project, Alex. He's on the call as well. I've got like my screen sharing for the presentation and stuff, but he's here as well, and I wanted to introduce him as well. And yeah, it was about, to Councilor Bradford's point, it was about a year ago that we kind of got talking about this. I highly doubt anyone remembers like exactly kind of what we had. For what it's worth, we did try to acknowledge some of the points, some things more successfully than others, but I guess to simultaneously give it a fresh start, and then also I'll try my best to speak to things that came up last time as well. This is our project. So not set in stone yet, but we're fixing to potentially call it Havenstead at Bell Road. Just to tell you a little bit about Alex and I, Ruya Development. We're here, we're local. We've been doing this for a really long time, and we've got several communities that we've had the privilege of developing in Nashville and surrounding. And these are a couple of those projects, anywhere from smaller, more boutique communities, like 30-ish, in these two, to like, several hundred homes that you see here. And these are all in and around Nashville, like some in Dixon, some in Madison. That one's in Chattanooga, but anyway. We pride ourselves on developing neighborhoods, whether we get to build the homes or not. Sometimes in a bigger project, we put the restrictions in on the materials and the square footages and things like that, and a larger builder takes it over. This is one that's small enough that we'll probably end up building the homes ourselves. But either way, both by the way we try to lay it out, the way we think about parking, amenities, the material restrictions, things like that, we want to create communities that last and communities that are beautiful. And these are for sale, right? This is not Section 8. This is not rental. These are going to be for sale homes that, people get to call home. Whenever we're approaching development, literally just earlier today, we were meeting with NDOT, Department of Transportation, and both through the restrictions that NDOT and Metro Stormwater, like there are these bodies of our city government, council, planning, that are in place, and they already have procedures that are designed to protect, people like you guys, living adjacent to development. So for example, like, this isn't necessarily us being so generous. I mean, we care, obviously, but the city themselves, they'll hold us accountable to stormwater, making sure that we're not, like flooding yards or streets, that everything's handled internally. They'll hold us accountable to, as we were talking to NDOT, they'll hold us accountable to make sure there's enough parking and guest parking and driveways aren't too close together, and just livable things like that. So we'll always honor those requirements and, do our best to exceed those requirements too. So from a stormwater standpoint, any development nowadays by Metro, it'll be better. It has to be the same, if not better, than what it was in terms of how the site handles stormwater, even with the roofs and the driveways and stuff like that. We always try to do our best with amenities. This is kind of a small community, but we'll still try to do something. I think I have a proposed list later on. We'll have sidewalks. We'll do our best to open space. We'll make sure there's enough parking. And then the other thing too is, again, this is a for sale, you know, live-in community, but we always engage a third-party HOA manager in the back end, and they're going to take care of things like trash. And if any of y'all have ever lived in an HOA, like you get that email that's like, hey, your trash bin's out a day too late. I think I'm about to get mine at my house right now. But they'll make sure that the community landscaping is taken care of and looking nice, and the retention ponds are taken care of and looking nice, and things like that, and just kind of holding the community to a standard that honors our name being on it, honors it being in proximity to other homes and other communities and other neighborhoods. um, why are we passionate about homeownership? If you look at the net worth of renters compared to the net worth of homeowners, there's a 40x jump on that. Honestly, that's probably even gone up since this was done in 2020 with all the appreciation and everything that we've had. But so that's why we care. That's why we want to create homes that people can actually buy.
Can
And we
I
want to.
unmute myself and speak in? I'm sorry, nobody's speaking. Look, stop right now. I don't know who you are taking over. I see you. I live in 20.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patricio. Miss Clark will have an opportunity to speak at the very end.
Thank you, sir. Of course, we can create affordable. I know affordable is kind of a dirty word in housing. I don't mean that literally like affordable housing. I mean like attainable housing is maybe the more accurate word, but just to say it more conversationally, like homes that are affordable for the average person, for a single working professional, for a young couple, for a young family, for a retiree. That's what we care about. And we care about doing it close to town. We care about doing it in Nashville because Nashville's awesome. We all love living here. It's easy to create a home that is at a decent price point in the suburbs or in a rural area. We like to do it here in Nashville.
Put it in your backyard.
Another thing too, this diagram, I didn't make this came from planning. And it's just kind of talking about, okay, so if you're talking about the median household income in Nashville, which is 100,269. Okay, so that's the median household income in Nashville. What does that mean? What can they afford? What can that home afford in terms of a value of a home? And it kind of, according to their study, correlates to a $300,000 home. Okay, that only represents 8.8% of Nashville's housing stock. So this is kind of the problem, that you have people making decent money, and then they go to try to buy a home, and it's like, oh yikes, there's very little of the homes that are available. Oh sure, if you have a household income of 200,000 and a home value of 600,000, oh great, now you have options, right? You're doing great. But if you're kind of just doing fine and earning an honest living, you're still kind of compressed with interest rates where they are, and you don't have very many options. And then another thing too, and again, this also came from planning. I was just moved by it. But you look at then when you apply like race and ethnicity on top of it, and you have, white and Asian families have an average, or a median rather, I guess those are different things, but a median income of like 123, 121. So this is that same percentage of housing that works right at that budget. So it's like, this is kind of their home price that they feel really comfortable in, like 371, 363. And it's like, oh, okay, about 30% of what's available. And then you look at median income on Black families, median income on Hispanic families, and you're kind of at like 71, 64. And then you look at like a housing price that would be like very comfortable, and then you just see not a lot of supply. Obviously, as much as I hate to say this, there's probably not going to be a new construction home that's like maybe a condo, but not like a town home, like a vertically separate private home for less than 300,000 in Nashville, just with what land costs and construction and everything. So these numbers are pretty unattainable, but we're trying to hit that like middle ground. And if anything, some people call it the missing middle. We're trying to hit that like, okay, 300s, low 300s, really. And I mean that when I say that. I know sometimes people say that, but that's where we're trying to be. And you're talking about if these were single family homes, and I'm sure that some of the commentary I'm going to get from some of the folks, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure everyone is like, oh, let's do single family homes. And like, it makes sense. I'm with you. Right. But the problem is like that single family home with its quarter-acre lot or half-acre lot, ends up needing to cost $500,000. And it's just like, who can afford that? You're just building for the Californians at that point. You're just building for, not that I have anything against Californians, but you're building for people that don't even really live here. You're building for people that are coming from other markets. You're building for people that are coming with equity. You're not building for like, our generation, for your grandchildren who are looking, they just got out of college, or they're, working as an HVAC technician, whatever, right? You're kind of not building for like most people. So we want to try to accomplish that. Yes, that ends up looking like a product that occupies less land, because the cost of land is one of the most difficult things in development. The cost of getting utilities on that land, right? All of that. So yeah, it's kind of a natural extension of thought, not, oh, developer, profit, money, blah. Like it's like, it's just logical to say the less land a home occupies, the more efficient that is. It's an urban concept. It maybe even a European concept, like it's more efficient. And through that, we can focus on charging mostly just for the materials that went into the home at that point. And you can achieve a price point that's a lot more universally attainable to people. And we care about that. We really do. We could be building $1.5 million homes in Franklin, and we're trying to do something like this because we really do care. This is not like an exact of what it'll look like, but this kind of gives you an idea. And I do want to show you the fact that these are 2 stories, and I do want to show you the concept of having a 2-car garage. That's all real. We've been through a couple of iterations of this where we considered 3-story, and we considered, this, that, and the other. But the more we got down to it, we're like, okay, well, we want to put our money where our mouth is. And if we are trying to pitch this as like, again, a young professional who might see themselves having a family or a retiree, or again, it's not like we try, we want it to be as broadly speaking as possible. But if you want the home to be as broadly servicing and service as many people, well, yeah, garages, that makes sense, both for parking, for storage, for cars, all that. And then the 2-story as well, very, very hard to fit anything on 1 story these days, obviously, but to not go to the 3, right? To have a 2-story home, it still feels kind of traditional materials, traditional colors. That's kind of what we're trying to go for. As you know, this is the site. It's 6.25 acres there at 2750 Bell Road. So as far as the concept plan, so one of the things that came up last time that we all talked about this together, and I just didn't want anyone to feel like it was ignored, because it wasn't. It didn't make it, but it wasn't ignored, was the concern about the Harbor Lights Drive. I know that this is, really the way that you guys get in and out as well. I know that there's a traffic light here. I know sometimes the switches can take time. I'm with it and all of that. Councilor Bradford's seen it. I was really, really trying, Alex and I were really trying to do a version that had a Bell Road entrance. NDOT would not let us do it. They said, we believe it's safer, it's superior, it's necessary to have that, those homes, those people working off of this signalized intersection that already exists at Harbor Lights. And then also with the way that this curve happens in the road, there's something called a sight distance issue. And then if you can see those compressed topo lines, that means there's kind of like a drop off. So it's sort of like a mound of dirt that's there, not like a hill that's dramatic, but you got what I'm saying? Again, sight distance issue, which means like someone's kind of pulling out here and they're like, oh, crap.
No, we're not doing that. I live at Harbor Light Drive first. You gonna try to build a gut?
Ms. Clark, I've advised everybody to wait till the very end of the presentation to speak. Everybody else has honored that. And so we're going to go ahead and continue forward.
The answer is no. The answer is no. If you can't do it without.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Thank you, sir.
So no, that means no. If you can't.
So that was something that NDOT came back pretty hard on. And, we tried to do. We have talked to NDOT about another idea, which I'll get to in a later slide, that might help. I don't know if this will be perceived as superior, but we can talk about it. But again, like I said, for sale housing, shooting for 3-bedroom homes that'll hopefully appeal to a wide range of audiences, and get a nice diverse community, and what everyone wants. Sidewalks, we'll try for a community library, like a one of those kind of like bird feeder looking things. We'll try for a dog park, and then as you can see, we've already started to account for stormwater considerations as well. And then this plan shows 64 units. If I'm being honest with you, that is like the most ever that we'd ever possibly get. I know a concern with folks sometimes when we do stuff like this is, well, how do I know it won't just be 100? It won't. Part of the nature of how we're applying for this, it's called an SP, which is a specific plan. It means that the city holds us to, and council holds us to, kind of exactly what we're telling them we're going to do. Just being straight with you, like, we need to add some additional surface parking. We need to just kind of look at some other things in here. So that number is only going to go down. I don't want to get anyone's head in the wrong spot to think that it'll be like, 40 or something, right? Like, there still is a point at which this has to make sense. But I just wanted to say, originally, I can't remember, I think we were at like 70 or something like that. So that was one thing we did try. Another thing that people had mentioned was they really didn't want homes kind of like just right up on back of the homes that are here. So we tried to be sensitive to that with these like turnaround areas. So really no one's like backyard, so to speak, is kind of up on, a home that exists here in the, existing community. So that was also something we tried to do. There was the feedback that people didn't want, these 3-story homes like towering over these. So like I say, we're shooting for that 2-story. So we did try to be responsive to as many things as possible. That was one where like a governing body of our city exercised an authority and a right that they have from a city planning perspective. And that's the same thing. It's just a little bigger. One thing I will say, and again, this was me just walking around being like, oh, I don't know, maybe this makes sense. But kind of behind the site, there's that Bayview Drive cul-de-sac. And obviously you guys know what it looks like, but I'll just zoom in a little bit here. It's like so close in terms of just having some connectivity here. And I don't want to assume or say I understand, exactly what the concerns are, but it seemed to me like the concern with having the Harbor Lights entrance was that, oh, additional cars and, getting in and out and things like that. So again, to me, I was looking at it and I was walking around and I was like, well, okay, why isn't there just a connection here? It's very little asphalt. We can pay for it. And then that way it kind of provides y'all another way to get out and to get in. Obviously, it's not like a primary entrance type situation, but NDOT did look at this and say, look, hey, we're always going to support connectivity. And, if there's the right combination of like, NES being okay, gas being okay, right of way owned by NDOT or owned by the city or whatever, that they would be potentially open to that. So that was something that we wanted to try to maybe offer to y'all and say, hey, we're happy to look at that, and hopefully address that concern. As far as, oh, sorry, that was from another presentation, my bad. As far as the homes and just getting a feel, again, I mean, new construction, 2-car garage, 3 bedrooms, targeting around, 1,600 feet, give or take, and about a $300,000 price point. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I can go back to the slide with the site plan kind of larger, just so we can, I guess, have this up as a reference point. And Alex and I are both here and ready to answer questions.
Okay, I've got 2 questions that I jotted down while listening to your presentation, and then I'll go to some that were popped up, and then we'll open the floor. So you mentioned that these will be owner occupied or living units. How would you ensure that the neighborhood that you're proposing is not overrun with rentals? Is that something that your HOA that you contract with, would they kind of limit the number of rentals allowed?
You can't stop that.
To his point, it's become a little bit dicey in recent years. There have been some like Supreme Court cases and stuff like that. But that being said, though, sometimes like you do see an HOA bylaw or an HOA, something that does attempt to limit it. I don't think that we can do it in the SP, but like you say, I think from an HOA level there remains some ability to restrict it. So yeah, we can think about that. It's kind of a catch 22 because like you don't. It's kind of a catch 22 because you don't want to like completely get rid of it, because then that you want to let that young person who's willing to invest in a home, or rather that older person who's buying it and then their kids end up with it, have flexibility. But at the same time, I've seen communities where there's like a percent restriction, where it's like a certain percent of the community that can be a rental at any given time. But we can totally talk about that. I think that's all very reasonable.
Okay. The other question I had, I think you've kind of broached on already, but I've jotted down landscaping and buffers and how those would be with the neighborhood, Bayview, and with Bell Road. What are you planning to do with those buffers and landscaping?
Forgive me. Are you talking about like up here?
Just on the property in general, buffering and creating kind of a divide between your community, the Bayview community, and if there's going to be any landscaping, kind of reduce some of the noise from Bell Road.
On like kind of on this part where it buffers like the lots. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to place myself in terms
Correct.
of like on the side or like
that's one of the areas. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I know something that came up was the idea of a fence. We can talk about that. And as far as landscaping, typically when you're dealing with a site this large and this many homes, the urban forester is going to require us to plant like a large number of trees, and I think that's a totally natural location to place them. So yes, we'll be required to plant, period. And it makes perfect sense, and we'd be happy to prioritize those locations for the majority of those plantings.
Okay. One of the first questions that was in the chat, in regards to the entrance, why wasn't Old Smith Springs Road used for your entrance?
We can continue to look into that. However, when we did talk to NDOT, you mean like over here, right? When we did talk to NDOT,
yes.
It's kind of a complicated thing, that driveway. Like, it's not exclusively on this property. It relies on some easements. I think with like core property, it kind of drops off the property like here-ish and then goes through like core property. A neighbor at the last meeting actually thought that some of it was on her property and was really hoping we wouldn't use that. And then on top of that, Old Smith Springs Road is considered by NDOT to be like a subpar road, so they just couldn't get over the preference for being there with that signalized intersection. For them, it was a no-brainer. But there wasn't clear ownership and right to use that Old Smith Springs even as like an additional entrance.
All right. So, Katie was wanting to know if you could confirm if a road is going on Bell Road.
If like an entrance?
Correct. I believe that's what she's getting at.
No, NDOT won't allow us to do that.
Okay. How will public transportation be supported with increased traffic?
Sure. With a project like this, NDOT will require us to do something called a transportation study. I saw in the comments someone asked about a traffic study. It incorporates both. So it'll have traffic considerations, it'll have WeGo and public transit considerations. If NDOT comes back with the requirement that we do a stop or something like that, I'm not saying they will or they won't. I'm just saying like that's something that we're held to, and we have to be responsive to what their feedback ends up being.
So
Ryan also asked about
Hey, can we
Russ,
can we talk instead of reading the chat? Because the chat just keeps going and we've been waiting.
Yeah, because we don't
I'm trying to get through the questions that have been submitted, and then
But
we'll
people
go to
keep
the
submitting. We're never going to get to us talking. Those are taking over the queue
Agreed.
versus us talking and us waiting.
Well, I look for some more questions in the queue. If anybody else wants to jump in and go ahead and ask some questions,
Can I jump in?
Yeah, I
Yes, go
want
ahead,
Russ
Ms.
on
Canna.
so I want
Please,
city council.
let me go first, please.
Back it up.
Go ahead,
So,
Ms. Canna.
so first of all, this is already a problem spot. It's not just because of traffic. It's because one, people constantly run the red light there. Second of all, is because when it freezes over, people get stuck there. Emergency services aren't able to go to homes because of how steep the hill is past that point, going to, I believe it's Coates' place. Cars slide, get abandoned, we get stuck, and it happens every time there's enough snow. And you know, Nashville, we shut down. So people can't drive, and worse, 4x4s can't even go through because it's blocked by so many cars.
Right.
And now you're adding in an accident-prone intersection a lot of homes, and it's a public safety failure waiting to happen. And this is going to raise our premiums in our insurance for both homeowner and auto insurance rates, which are already really high, really
Right.
high. And we might get denied on getting insurance, which we already have problems because we're close to the airport and all the break-ins that happen because of the airport parking. This is gonna cause, we have already had a huge increase year over year on our insurance.
Right.
So now we're gonna add even more traffic into somewhere where there's a lot of accidents. This is gonna affect us so much. And it's not about, oh, it's too many cars. No, it's about safety and how we're not gonna be able, when we're in danger, safety services are not gonna be able to get to us.
Real quick, I don't want to dismiss any of what you just said, and I'm happy to speak to it directly. I just want to maybe say something that I didn't mention before, not out of lack of desire, it just didn't occur to me. But this site, this property, it is a development parcel. And what I mean by that is it's already zoned to be subdivision land. Technically, that zoning is geared towards single family homes.
Right.
But as far as like something happening here, an entrance off of Harbor Lights, you're talking 25, 30 homes by what's called by right, which means we don't even have to have this meeting. We don't even have to have this conversation.
Then you can have it with 25, 30, whatever it was zoned for. But now you're making it make even double with density.
You just got real
That's
smart with that
ridiculous.
lady,
That's
man. When I
already
see you,
ridiculous.
I promise I'm gonna beat your ass.
So I just don't understand what we're hoping to accomplish is like just some openness around like a different product that would allow, broader populations of people
You
to be
just want
able
to
to.
maximize how much value you could get for the
It's
land. That's
really
all
not.
it is. That's all it
It's not
is.
about
That's
In
all
the
we see.
backyard,
I
Patrice.
promise it's not about.
That is, if you
I
want to
promise
build
it's not about
homes, build homes. If you want to build homes, build homes.
Build
That's
homes.
build homes. That's what we have a
Single
problem.
family homes, what you
Not
are
the
zoned
single
for.
family homes, because and then
Exactly.
you want to say that you have to come to our neighborhood. So no, then it's a no. It's a no. It's for another area.
There are
It's for another area.
Okay.
Single family homes, okay. Because we all understand someone in need of a home in a safe environment, but not driving our neighborhood in addition to the
That's
items
right.
that the previous resident just talked about. No, absolutely not.
I'd also like to make a comment about the bus stops. If you know the area so well, WeGo does not have a bus stop or a bus route right there, and you just said you're going to, and you're just
That's
said you're
like a lot.
going to consult with them. So how are you going to consult with them when they don't even have a route out there?
And traffic's just the first problem.
Guys, I understand that this is
What about the
personal.
wildlife that live through here? We're right squeezed between
I
Una Park
understand.
and Hamilton Creek.
Trees knows address. I'm going to see him personally.
I understand that this is personal. It's disappointing to me. I do a lot of these. It's disappointing to me the way that you guys are engaging.
It's
with
disappointing
me.
the way you're dismissing every single one of us, and it's
I'm not
disappointing
trying
the
to
way that
dismiss
you
anything. I'm not
One at a
dismissing
time,
anything.
please, everyone. One at a time.
Time. I'm right here. I was just adding to the conversation and clarifying that the question isn't development or no development. The question is the nature of it. But you guys didn't even give me the chance to circle back to what she was saying about the ice. I'm right here. I'm not shutting down the call. I'm ready. If you want me to return to her point about the insurance, we can talk about that. Let's talk about wildlife. We can talk about wildlife. If you want to talk about WeGo, we can talk about WeGo. Like, just let's give it some time. Not a huge fan of the person that's now made two personal threat. Like, cool guys. Like, I'm right here. I'm a person too. Like, let's just have a conversation. That's all it is. This is honestly for your benefit. In the sense of just the input. I'm saying, like, this isn't set in stone. This isn't like
I really
happening
like
with
how you're talking down to us, how we just need to listen to you. That's very disrespectful.
No, it's not about listening. It's about all of us respecting each other. I don't feel respected at this point.
It is. It's a lecture.
And Patrizio,
It was.
I just wanted to state that on Harbor Lights Road, even without any of this development, someone was speeding down Harbor Lights and literally knocked my fire hydrant out of my yard. And thank God it did not bust the water main. It took probably 2 to 3 months for me to get a new fire hydrant. I was concerned about not only my property, but the other homes around me that would utilize that fire hydrant if someone had a fire. So people speed anyway in this neighborhood. And so my concern is that, and also traffic and crime and, destroying the little forest that the animals have. We're getting foxes and coyotes and other wildlife because we're destroying their natural habitat. So it's just I've lived here since 2002, and it breaks my heart that I worked so hard to buy this house. I've almost have it paid for, and to have this happen, it just makes me really sad.
Hey guys, can I ask our councilman a question?
Councilman Bradford, where do you stand on this?
Yes. How do we stop this? Because they want to build. That no matter what we're saying here, they want to build.
Yes.
Because they're only here because they're being sponsored.
So how do we stop this?
So the question was, how do I feel? The question was how I feel about this.
Yes.
So my biggest problem with the way our city's been so far is that we've not let housing keep up with demand. As someone myself who has tried to find housing in the city that's affordable, it's been pretty impossible. And so I am open to all conversations that involve increasing our housing supply, but that doesn't ruin
Russ, let's
our
not be
communities.
political here. Give us an answer. Give us a straight answer.
Do you get a kickback for getting this home in this development? Is that what this is?
That's illegal.
So to the insinuation that I receive kickbacks, my financial disclosures are public, so feel free to check them out. So if you want to accuse me of being on the take, you can go ahead and check that out before you make insulting remarks.
We just don't know why you would allow someone to disrespect us in this call. We just don't know why, as a representative, you would allow this to happen to us.
So far, the only disrespect that I have seen has been directed towards myself and the developer, with everyone talking over each other and interrupting the call. Now, the question that was asked me was, what do I support? I do support some housing here. I do not support base zoning, because what we don't need is $500,000 homes that are not going to be attainable by some of our most hardworking Nashvillians, like our teachers and our first responders. And plus, $500,000 homes, they're going to increase your tax bill because it's going to increase your property value. I would like to see something. I'd like to see something more than base zoning. I would like to see more housing built so that we can spread the tax burden across more evenly, and so we can reduce these double-digit tax increases we see every couple of years. That's not going to happen with base zoning, and so I would like to hear from the different metro departments through the planning process what they think about this. And the only way for that to happen is for this to be filed with the planning department so that they can take a look at it. Some of the questions that were brought up, like the environmental impact, the traffic, all these will be looked into by Metro Water, Metro Planning, etc. And then they'll make their recommendations, and then the Planning Commission can recommend approval or disapproval.
Are you saying this has to be rezoned?
I'll go ahead and say too, I've got someone from NDOT on the call. So, Mr. Purvis, I don't know if you've heard some of the conversations about the traffic and whatnot. Do you have any answers for them from the NDOT side of things?
Yes, sir. As far as answers go, we don't have any real data to work with yet. This is all pre-application. Obviously we've had some very preliminary discussions with the developer as to what they're generally thinking, but we've not gotten to the place yet where planning has gotten an application. So we're not yet where it's something finalized where we can ask them to do a traffic study and a traffic analysis. But if this were to move forward, we would absolutely require a multimodal traffic analysis and require them to make the improvements that would make it as good as possible.
And what about
And
public transportation to that
someone brought up
analysis?
the question of if this was a private road. Are you able to confirm if this is
They got
private
some
or if this
council
is Metro
council
maintained?
member.
When you say this, which you mean Harbor Lights?
Correct.
No, it is
Someone mentioned that Harbor Lights was a private road.
Harbor Lights Drive is a public road. It is owned by Metro, maintained by Metro, as well as Bell Road. As in regards to the question about, obviously we in our preliminary discussions had pushback against an additional access on Bell Road, because Bell Road is an arterial. It is meant to move people more than anything else. Mobility is more important on our arterials than access points. The more access points, the more chances you have for danger, the more safety issues you have, and to a little of what Patrizio mentioned before, in this area, any sort of access on this frontage, additional to what they already have, would absolutely be a sight distance issue and would be more dangerous than anything else. If they are going to move forward with this, once we do the multimodal traffic analysis, I would almost guarantee that it would involve some sort of upgrading to the lights, whatever that looks like, to handle the additional traffic. I can't speak towards the specifics because we don't have the actual data. I know someone else had mentioned using Old Smith Springs Road. I was looking at the parcels during this conversation. I don't think they actually have frontage on Old Smith Springs Road. I think they're separated from that right of way by private properties. So I'm not sure that would be an option, but that would be something we would want to explore as well. That, of course, would most likely warrant additional improvements at the entrance of Old Smith Springs and Smith Springs, but that's obviously, a lot of this is conjecture. We don't have anything real to work with at this moment, but we are prepared to do whatever we need to do to make sure it is safe and it moves the best that it can while dealing with the realities of existing property rights of the developer.
Mr. Purvis, when
Can I
was
ask
the
a
last
question,
time a
Mr.
traffic analysis was done on Bell Road?
On Bell Road in general, it's
Yes, sir.
hard to say. It's multimodal traffic analysis. The ones that I'm talking about, what they mostly resolve around, it looks at the specific usage of the parcel in question. And there's particular maths that come into it with planning of like this use generates this kind of traffic or this many trips per day or whatever it is, and using the mix of uses on the parcel with the immediate vicinity. That's how we get towards requiring the developer to make improvements to the area. So as far as Bell Road, there might have been recent analyses up further, where there's been other development on Bell Road. I mean, this parcel has not gotten an existing traffic analysis, if that kind of answers your question. I know it's not exactly what you were looking for. But I do know that for all of I know nearby, the councilmember himself had requested us to look at a couple different intersections that currently don't have lights at them. And those have been in the past couple months, and most of those yielded that no, the lights are not warranted at this time, things like that. So we're actively looking at Bell Road for a number of different reasons. Just kind of depends on the thing at hand. But no, this parcel itself has not received a traffic analysis yet.
So Matt, let me ask
Mr.
a question.
Grinstead, go ahead.
So let me ask a question about this. We're talking about this being a thoroughfare of mobility and everything,
Yes, sir.
and no traffic studies have been done. What about public transportation out in this area? We have no public transportation whatsoever in that area. It was cut back in 2019 and has not been brought back. You guys are worried about all of these major roadways and not worried about these. You want to feed everybody into the pikes. You want to feed us into Murfreesboro Road. Well, we can't even move and navigate, and yet we want to put more stuff in there. So you're saying you've done these studies on Bell Road. What about public transportation? When and where will we get that? Choose How You Move just passed, and there's not a thing in Choose How You Move about Bell Road. It's all about building these new bus centers and redoing the train station there in Donaldson and bringing buses into there. But what about us that are in the same zip code doing all this stuff?
I completely understand. So the current, you are correct. Choose How You Move does not include, and I'll say this, NDOT, we build the infrastructure for WeGo being the servicer of public transportation. We don't control where routes are. We are more or less told where they want routes to go. and it is a partnership with WeGo to actually place them. But I will continuing from there. If I can finish, please. Say that again.
That you guys have a very big influence with WeGo where these go. It's a partnership with you guys.
That is correct. But as far as running the service, it is their decision as to where they feel service is needed to be run.
Where infrastructure go for these as well.
Infrastructure, yes, that is correct. But in terms of WeGo, they direct where their service runs. We supply what they need to run their service effectively and safely, but we don't decide where their routes go. And further to that, you're right. Choose How You Move does not include a route on Bell Road. I think the closest a route of one of the new connectors gets is a little bit south of Smith Springs with one of the new connector routes. But you are correct. Yeah, in the next 15 years plan, public transportation is not coming to the section of Bell Road as it is currently decided.
And so for this developer to sit there and say, well, we're going to work with WeGo, we'll tell them to get a bus stop out here. That's not even accurate. So that's
I never said that. I said that we're required. Sorry, I'm going to talk over you. I never said that. I said that we're required to do a study and that we're required to do what they ask us to do as a consequence of that study. That's all.
You said you would work with WeGo for a bus stop there. And we don't even have bus service.
I said
that goes to show how much you have invested and how much you really looked into the mobility and the traffic moving on Bell Road. That's all I got to say.
I said that I hear you. I said that if they request something like that, or for example, we need you to put more sidewalks, or we put this ramp. What I was trying to say, I apologize for using that analogy.
Hey, Patricio, you're kind of breaking up there.
Recommendations. Sorry, I said that if they require something of us, like a WeGo stop or a handicap ramp onto a sidewalk or something, that we have to comply. That's what I meant to say. I apologize if that was misunderstood.
So
there's one question I want to hear.
I have some questions
and
concerns if I could be heard.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the properties that are along Bayview Drive, I think that some of them involve some common area that are behind their houses. And so the property lines that are drawn on that actual map is very, very, very close to their backyards. Like if they have and you have your turnaround traffic in those areas drawn almost right up to their property line, which is probably, I'm guessing, I don't live on Bayview Drive, but as my neighbors that live on Bayview Drive, they would probably, that parking area is going to be, I would say, within 25 feet of their house. That's how shallow those backyards are. Because now they enjoy right now probably some common area that is behind their houses. So that's one of my concerns. My other concern would be that I think that you should probably consider is the traffic in and out of our neighborhood now is barely, since the other neighborhood has gone in on the hill, is barely navigable. Our entranceway is very, very, very narrow. So we've petitioned NDOT. We've talked to NDOT about putting a right-hand turn lane into our neighborhood. They said that there's not enough room. So we don't, you're going to build the houses. I already know that. I'm in the industry. But we need to try to address some of that. Our whole front entrance would almost need to be worked with a right and left turn out, and Bell Road would have to be improved to have a right-hand turn lane into the subdivision. If you're going to build 64 homes off of Harbor Lights Drive, with their entrance being there, that traffic is going to be already huge. So a right-hand turn lane, and almost I would feel like you should improve that area on the other side of your property that continues all the way to ExxonMobil and that right-hand lane should almost continue all the way to ExxonMobil, because I'm sure the NDOT guy could probably tell you the rating for Bell Road and Smith Springs Road. I'm sure that intersection has received an F, if not maybe an F plus, but it is not very good. That intersection is horrible on the face of it. And if they've looked into any kind of study that's done on that whole intersection needs to be improved. And I think that would, if you want to build the homes, I feel you should probably, and NDOT and other builders have to improve that intersection. I think if you improve that intersection and improved our intersection that's actually comes into our neighborhood, and I think that there's not enough buffer for whoever lives right there in that first home, those first set of apartments that you have coming, or homes, I apologize. That first set of homes that you have coming in, there's not enough buffer between that house that's currently there. They just installed a handicap ramp for whoever lives there. So I don't know, just so the rest of our neighborhood knows what house I'm talking about. There's not enough buffer between that property. So that whole first set of homes that you have entering up in there shouldn't, I don't think those even should be even toyed with trying to be built. It's too close, especially on the person who owns that piece of property. You're going to be building literally 10 feet from the edge of their house. And then I don't know what the dimensions of the depth of those units are, but I looked at the plan. And so let's say that's a 40-foot deep, and then you have a 12-foot roadway, and then you have another 40-foot deep. That whole section of homes, in my opinion, should probably be eliminated out of the equation. And that way we have some type of buffer, and then possibly you gate your community so those people have access only.
Yeah,
make that section gated, make that part of your gated community, because as the lady said,
very well said.
When the snow, when the snow and all of that stuff does come, yes, everybody parks at the end of that street because they cannot make it up the hill.
Yeah.
It becomes a big traffic jam, and now we're going to have, and you're also going to have to dig that whole piece out to get up to that elevation that you're trying to get up to. So that's all going to have to be retaining walled, and that's all going to have to become, and so now you're going to have to get your people up that hill. And if it's especially that side, that part of the road runs east-west, that would make it a southeastern driving road that would enter up in there. It's not going to get melted by snow, or it's not going to get melted by the sun. It's going to be a huge inconvenience. But I think if obviously I would feel better if you decided that you would put 30 homes in there like it's zoned for. But I mean, I'm in the business. I can't say don't build homes. I'm a trim carpenter. I want you to build homes.
I appreciate it.
But I do see I live in the neighborhood, and you're building homes at the end of my neighborhood. I do see the problems that possibly that you haven't thought about. I think the back access would be a lot, even if NDOT says, well, that's going to get you further from the traffic center of Smith Springs and Bell Road, because a lot of those people are going to go towards the airport. Some of them will go the opposite way. I don't know that entrance is doable. I'm concerned about your amenities. I'm concerned about what what, as far as you're building structures and how they're actually done. Is it going to
That guy
be
don't care about any of that. He only cares about a bottom dollar. His bottom line is a greenback.
So
whether that stuff is going to be hardy plank siding, or if you're going to do all brick homes, or if you're going to, because if you do hardy, you're going to have that. There's going to be a lot of maintenance that's going to go with those homes that
Mr. Doris,
people with that $200,000 don't really be able to afford to keep up with.
I'm with you. I want to just respond to everything that you said, and I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate the time that you took to be that respectful, and I want you to know that like everything you just said makes perfect sense. Zooming out, just clarifying with everyone too, and like I apologize. Sometimes I take this for granted in terms of like this being like what I do all the time. So the thing with the single family concept, right? It's by right, which means there's very little oversight. Yes, things like the stormwater still has to make sense, and the city holds us accountable to that. We don't need to do a traffic study for that. We don't need to promise a material cladding. We could put vinyl siding on them if we wanted to, or someone could, or whatever. You get what I'm saying? With what we were trying to talk about today, and I know that a lot of people are offended by the density and the concept, and I want to like understand that, and I want to say like I do hear you. Just allow me to, I guess, apologize / also explain, please. With the multi-unit, townhome thing, right? The nature of that zoning, the rezoning, it's called an SP, it stands for specific plan. There are things within that require us to do specific things. And in partnership with y'all and your feedback, in partnership with Councilor Bradford, the city can require us to do certain things. So for example, take brick, let's just say brick to keep it easy. With an SP, we could be required to do a certain percentage brick or all brick. With the single family thing, no, there's none of those restrictions, ability for restrictions. So if you guys can just kind of look at me in a different way in the sense of this, right? Please just trust the fact that one, what we were trying to do here today was give more people homes, just mathematically, right? Okay. And then two, what we were trying to do was buy this zoning instrument. And it's been successful in many other areas. If it's not right for y'all, that's totally fine, right? No judgment from me on that. It's okay. But what we were trying to do was present a mechanism. It's a tool that the city has to kind of allow community and developer and council person to partner and create a vision that everyone's on board with. So again, colors, materials, things like that can be like literally written in stone with an SP. Whereas with a single family thing, it can kind of just be whatever. So anyway, and I also do want to say like I am listening to you guys, and unless anyone's confused about like how this process works, this is like so preliminary. This was meant to be a conversation, and I do apologize for what that's worth if anyone felt like personally offended by this. This wasn't meant to be offensive. It was meant to start a conversation. There were parts of this that made to us Bell Road is a busy road. Again, from our perception, it's a development zone. You get what I'm saying? So that's where this came from. This didn't come from anything against your neighborhood. It didn't come from anything about that. But we are listening. I am listening to what you're saying. I couldn't not listen. And I just want to not like, I don't mean to be condescending. I don't want to say like warn, but I want to just kind of educate and share information to say like plainly put, the one version with the SP where we could do the townhomes and we could get a more affordable, price point. You would have been able, people would have been able, Councilor Bradford would have been able to have, put certain things in, like for the lady who talked about her fire hydrant getting knocked over. We could have done speed humps or something like that on Harbor. Like there were things we could have done. If it ends up being the just by right cookie cutter is what it is, single family thing, there's just going to be a bulldozer on that property one day. There's never going to be another one of these. There's never going to be a public hearing. There's never going to be any intervention from anything or anyone. And there'll just be some houses there one day. So, and I'm comfortable with that. And I don't know if that's me who ends up doing that or someone else. I have no idea. I was excited about, thank you, Matt. Sorry, I don't mean to speak out of turn with saying we could do the traffic calming thing. I just was talking about that being something we'd be willing to do, but like out of conceptually, if it's allowed. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard if you can even do one of those speed hump things or not if they let you. But what I'm trying to say is like that's all this is. So I think it's important for everyone to kind of recognize that there will be homes built here one day. I think it's important to recognize that homes need to be built in this town. It's a growing city. It's not a dying city. I'm glad we live in a growing city. But within what it's zoned for, there's no traffic study that will be done. It will be on Harbor Lights because we're beholden to what NDOT requires us. So anyway, I apologize if I rubbed anyone the wrong way. If I promise that this didn't come from a bad
enjoy
place.
Damn, all of the people that live here, you're going to pack 128 other additional people here in this neighborhood. And you don't care about nothing. Your solution to everything is to put a speed bump up and help decrease the values of other people's homes here.
I'm saying we.
If I can follow up.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Jim.
If I could kind of jump in on that, all of the problems that we've been talking about tonight are foreseeable problems. They're ones that we can see coming. They're obvious. We've had experience with them. There's nothing that's surprising in what's been mentioned here tonight. All the benefits of this project accrue to the developer, but all the pain from it goes to Harbor Lights. So I'd like to ask you if you would like to take the responsibility for mitigating some of that pain. For example, adding into the covenants that all units must be owner occupied, that you would pay for snow removal up and down Harbor Lights Drive every time there's a chance for snow or ice, so that would keep the traffic flowing. Would you be willing to pay for something like that? Would you be willing to pay for the traffic signal changes and the traffic studies and the turn lanes that'll be going in? Because if you're going to benefit, we shouldn't have to fund all the problems that go with that.
She's the one who bought Steve.
Answering your question, and I actually really appreciate that question. That was kind of what I was trying to touch on. If it was the SP mode, like that, yes. And also the SP allows that to be held accountable. It's just people are saying, oh, there's no way to hold them accountable. The SP is literally the way to hold. That's like what an SP is. So with the original vision, with the townhome vision, not only would we be willing to, but you actually really can hold us accountable to that and all of that. So, and again, I really hope that's what I was trying to say when I was saying we weren't coming in here trying to do anything to you guys. Like, we wanted to have a conversation. Those were things we could have talked about. But if the consensus is no, do it by right, whatever, then no, we will not do that. There's no way to hold us accountable to doing that, and no, that will never happen. So that's kind of where we were coming from, and being like, hey, let's have a conversation. If there are things that we could do, like help with the snow, if there are things that we could do, that was kind of where we were coming from. It was not from a bad place. But again, if the like majority thought is like, hey, we were kind of good the way we were, put some single family homes there and let's call it a day. Okay, I can hear that. I'm a reasonable person. All I wanted was to have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, but would the SP require that you take care of problems in another subdivision? And who would we call and how would we get action to make sure that brine and that sort of thing is laid down before a storm hits, rather than reacting to a problem?
Are any of the owners concerned about their property value?
Hypothetically speaking, with the whole HOA thing, I'm really talking out loud. We would have to have further conversation around this to figure out what made the most sense. But like, hypothetically, it could be a payment.
Can we talk about property value? Can we talk about the property value, the decrease in the property value? Yeah, once you put those units there.
I want to answer Mr. Grinstead's question, but I'm happy to circle back to that.
Okay, so
hypothetically,
make sure you
maybe
remember
it's
that. Circle back to.
I will. Yeah, I promise I will. Hypothetically, maybe it's something where like, hey guys, here's this amount of money and it's part of the HOA fee. Let's just say it's $1,200 a year. I don't know, whatever. It's like, here you go, Harbor Lights HOA. Here's the snow plowing allowance, so to speak, and it's on your HOA to actually make sure that it gets done. Or again, talking out loud, but within the SP, there is mechanisms to create things like that, and also there's contracts too. There can be a contract between two HOAs. There can be. I mean, this is an extreme example, but Broadwest, the high-rise condo hotel downtown, they literally have someone that I know lives there, and like there's a door between the hotel and the owner residence condos, and literally the HOA rents the door from the hotel site. So there's all kinds of ways to put something like this in effect, but there's absolutely zero justification or like incentive that we have to do that without something that's beyond, the existing. Answering the property values question, just speaking from what I know, I'm not a tax assessor. I'm not I am a real estate professional, right? Speaking from what I know, new construction homes, period, whether they're townhomes, condos, single family homes, mansions, no matter what, new construction homes are going to have a higher price per square foot that they sell for. And that is always going to increase the property value of the home around it, because you figure, let's just say, and forgive me if this is not what your home is worth. This isn't me telling you what your home's worth. Okay, I'm just talking in numbers here. Let's just say your home's worth $400,000 today. Okay, then let's say townhome and it's smaller than your home is. It doesn't have any land compared to your home does, right? And then we end up selling that for $315,000. Okay, that will increase property value, because then a single family home with land and stuff like that, will be worth more. And
the value of the
that's
homes,
how that works.
the value of homes over here are actually $429,000 appraisal value. So you're gonna put $200,000 to $300,000 homes over there just because you have there with no density, at least zero lot lines and everything, does not mean this is gonna help increase the property value here. That's a lie. I'm a realtor and a general contractor myself. I do this every day. Been doing it for years. Don't sit here and lie to people. Let's be honest about what's going on and what you try to do. You're trying to make money on building your units over there and everything. You try to make us be okay with everything, and for us not to make no ruckus about it.
Sure. No, I don't want that. That's why I'm here. I'm not offended that we're talking. I was offended with the way some people were saying certain things, but I'm not offended that we're talking. We wanted to have this conversation. And also, nothing's been submitted. This was a preliminary conversation. So I think it's valuable that we've been able to have this conversation, and I am listening.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt. There are multiple Bayview residents who would like to speak. So can we please go to the hand raise option for the people that have been waiting to speak and stop the interruptions, please?
I don't have that hand raise option for I have a question for Matt on and the 64 units up on this hill. That's potentially 128 cars or more that are be connecting to our neighborhood, to our 159 houses that we have, and all the cars traffic that we already have. When they put the traffic light at Couchville Pike for the industrial park, Bell Road, the 4 miles between our neighborhood and I-40, it's packed during rush hour. It takes you 30 minutes to go 4 miles because there's so many cars on there. Adding this mix of additional cars that's connecting into Bell Road as well, I don't see how. I know you're in a major project on refurbishing Bell Road. Matt, what do you say to that as far as adding more cars into here? How are we going to mitigate this traffic nightmare that Bell Road's becoming?
So as far as our power in the situation, we ultimately cannot stop development. We have to deal with whatever it brings. We don't have power to, it comes a point where we have to be concerned about the things that we're concerned about. And if the developer effectively placates those concerns, then there's nothing else we can do from our perspective. There's other departments that look at other things. Obviously, the council member has power in the terms of a rezoning, and the rest of council from that matter as well. As far as
has power also, right?
Well, your representative,
Matt, and continue. Why is this rezoned in the first place? It was a single family farm up there with one house up there on that hill. Now we're wanting 64 houses up there.
I have no power. We have no power over it. And anyone can purchase a land, and you have land rights to do with what you would want. Rezoning is it's not a right to rezone, but it's certainly an option for anyone who owns to pursue rezoning. Like I said, when it comes to development, the best we can do is take what developers are giving us and try to get them, and we have more power today than we have even last year or the year before, due to some of the policies we've implemented in the last 3 years. We have more power now to actually require more from developers than we used to. Our traffic analysis that we now institute is a lot more thorough and also considers other different modes of traffic other than simply cars in a way that we did not used to look. It involves more of a deeper look than it used to. And those deeper looks and those data points give us more leverage to require developers to make larger improvements. If they are the ones causing the traffic, it is more than ever, it is now on their onus to deal with that. Obviously, Bell Road has a lot more contributors to traffic than just this developer would be. I know that we have some larger capital projects that are awaiting funding. I know that partially Councilmember Bradford, but I think in tandem with some of the other area council members, currently have a proposal in the capital improvements budget to widen widen Bell Road from Smith Springs to Stewart's Ferry. I believe that is unfunded at the moment. It is $30 million price tag as of last year's dollars. So those things can't happen overnight, but I know that is part of the solution trying to be pursued here. I see somebody in the chat don't allow rezoning. There's a certain point where we do not have power to object to rezoning. If we do the multimodal traffic analysis, if the developer does the traffic analysis and they get it to us and we review it and decide that these improvements are the ones that are not only needed to be made, but comparable, reasonable, like a proper ratio to the development, then we'll make sure that they do those, but we can't stop it if they have checked all of our boxes, essentially.
Hey, Matt, I want to cut you off there. There are
You're good.
about 3 people with hands up, and it is 11 minutes after 7. I want to be mindful of everybody's evening, so I'm going to go in alphabetical order that I see on my screen. Mr. Arthur Hip, I see your hand was raised. Then we'll go to Daryl, and then after Daryl, Ms. Kano, and those are the only hands I see.
Ms. Kano, a bit.
And let's make sure
Hip?
we hear from you, Mr. Bradford, at the end about how you feel about this tonight.
I'm waiting for everybody to have their say before I give my final thoughts. Mr. Hip, like I said, your hand was the first I saw. If you're still here, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my question is probably going to be for the NDOT person who's in here. Again, when it comes to forcing us to allow another access road of a Harbor Lights Drive, he said Harbor Lights is not a private road. However, I know they have never run a plow up here, and I know last year there was an ambulance that stuck at the top of the hill for 2 hours, and when the city came and brought a plow in to get the ambulance out, when I said something about them plowing the rest of the road, they said they couldn't do that because this is a private road. We also have a license plate reader on our street, which anybody who's familiar with that fiasco knows that wouldn't be allowed on a city street. So I guess I'm confused. The city says that it's a private road when it benefits them, but I just don't understand whether it's if it's not a private road. I just don't get how that is.
Yeah, I can answer that. I cannot speak for the maintenance, our maintenance personnel that was out there with the plows at the time. I can say now that is not correct. It is a public road. It is maintained and owned by Metro. There might be I don't know the ins and outs particular. I've heard a lot of talk about HOA involvement, and I know LPRs can be placed on private property to monitor public roads depending on the situations. I know there's one over in Hermitage that has the same situation. But all that being said, it is a public road. We would love to plow and clear every single street in Metro every single time it snows or ices. We do not have the funds to do that. In the past year, or for last year's season, we were able to significantly beef up our snow response, which included and always has included, but included even more so last year, the ability to have dedicated plows to follow emergency personnel around, which is the one that you saw. Obviously, with the hill situation that I know you guys have, it's a little more difficult, but for emergency personnel, we absolutely have plows dedicated to those vehicles to make sure they get where they need to go. Yeah, I apologize that you got incorrect information from our maintenance personnel. I can't speak to that, but everything I'm seeing now is that Harbor Lights and the rest of the development, the neighborhood are all public roads. I'm looking at parcel viewer right in front of me.
Okay. Daryl, if that answers your question, Mr. Hip, we'll go to Daryl.
Okay, I got a couple things. You keep talking about affordable housing. Most affordable housing is Section 8 housing and rental property housing. You cannot afford a $300,000 house if you need help paying for it. It's not affordable housing. Also, too, there's a road that's already made for that property to have someone enter and exit that property. You can use that road. It's already there. So you can put the 24 homes there or 27 homes there that is zoned for, and that'll be fine. And the statement that he made where you have any control of what the houses look like. If he does not build a house that no one likes, no one will buy it.
That's
so
a fair
point. Lead us down a road that we're not going to go down.
Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't trying to steer anything or lead anyone.
Yes,
I get
you
what you're
were.
saying.
Yes, you were. I deal with people like you every day. I deal with contractors. I know the in, I know the outs. I know how you cut corners because I got guys who does the work and they teach me how to cut corners.
Okay.
I know cut corners.
Thank you, Mr. We've never met each other. There's no one like me. There's no one like you. We're our own people, but I understand what you are saying. And it's a fair point that obviously we're going to build something quality and that looks good, regardless of whether it's a townhome or a single family home. And believe me, I am hearing everyone in this call say that the single family and fewer homes is preferred. That has been abundantly heard and received.
All right. Does that answer your question, Daryl?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. If you've already asked your question, go ahead and put your hand down so I can make sure I'm not. And I've seen everybody. I see a Juan Mendoza.
Yeah, so my question is one of the guys mentioned earlier. This is actually a question for Matt. They mentioned about extending the street and Bell Road to have a turn lane. Is that been looked into it to be able to work on it? And the other thing is that they were mentioned on the house that is already on the property right now. It does already have an interest that goes from their property to the Bell Road. So I don't understand why they can't keep using that for the new development if it's already there.
Yeah, so I can answer that. As far as the entrance of Harbor Lights Drive and potential expansion or improvements there, that would be discussed and figured out through our traffic analysis process. When we actually get the data of what the movements would look like and what actually traffic would be generated from this development, whatever it looks like, we would take that into consideration as to asking the developer to potentially make improvements. And this is not a promise because I without the data in front of me, I can't promise anything. But I can't promise we will look at the possibilities of improvements that would need to be made to that intersection to accommodate extra traffic, whether it's turn lane, whether it's upgrades to detection on the lights, whatever it looks like. That would be in the conversation. As far as the access to Bell Road, I can't speak for any of the lower density options as current zoning allows, but based on the conversation that my team has had with the developer already, with what they have so far been planning, the traffic that would be generated from what has been considered thus far would be too much to allow an additional access. And it's honestly not about the traffic generated from an access point on Bell Road. It's more about the distances between the intersections and the safety problems that would be generated from a number of houses, whether it's 24 or 64, accessing Bell Road on their own, not 400 feet from the Harbor Lights Drive intersection. That's an unsafe scenario that we would not allow access there. So it is our call regardless of what's being built, to prefer access on Harbor Lights Drive. It would probably turn into a require access on Harbor Lights Drive depending on the numbers of the traffic and what comes out of the traffic analysis.
So Matt, a follow-up, if I may, talking about the distances between intersections, especially on Bell Road, does that minimum distance, does that not also, exist on Harbor Lights as well?
It doesn't.
Would the interest of the neighborhood be too close to the intersection? Based
That
on what you
doesn't,
just said about Bell Road?
it matters, but not nearly as much. With Harbor Lights being a local street and it not being signalized on the other directions, not carrying the same volume, especially not the same speeds. The speeds are the biggest thing with sight distance and a different distance between intersections. It does not affect nearly as much on Harbor Lights access points as it does on Bell Road access points, with it being an arterial and being much higher speeds in the local road. It's not safe to have an access point that would be not only shielded by the hill and the incline, but also just so close to the other two intersections.
Yeah, I got a question for Russ Bradford. Hey, do we have any council meetings on this?
So when I get to my comments at the end, I'll explain what the process would be on that, and it'll probably answer that question for you. Shauna, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. So a few things. My first point is this property that was originally listed for sale by the homeowners was in like the 700,000 price range. And if this property is rezoned, how much are the developers attempting to pay for that property? Should I keep going, or do you want to answer that one real quick?
Sure. I mean, the same way it's rude to ask someone how much they make in a year or whatever, I'm not going to directly answer that question. What I will say, though, is that single family lots are worth more than townhome lots. So take my word for it when I say that there's really not that much of an economic difference. I promise there isn't. If we're talking between the townhomes and the single family, that's why I'm not like irritated or like threatened right now. Like I really am listening to what everyone's
trying to. No one's trying to threaten you, sir. I can assure you that.
No,
I promise.
I'm saying I don't feel any type of way about this because I'm saying like financially, the way that single family lots are worth more and single family homes are worth more than townhomes, like it really doesn't make a difference. Like I know you guys don't want to believe this, but like I really do promise when I say like I actually have a passion for delivering homes that are beautiful and are at a more reasonable price point, and that's really all this was. So regardless of how much we're paying for the land, not paying for the land, whatever, like it doesn't really matter. So this really did come from a place of trying to just have a vision, but I understand the fact that vision isn't being well received. I can hear that loud and clear.
My next point is that it was noted and previously said multiple times that you guys have not done any formalities as far as the process goes. And I do know that you are legally required to put up signage for the residents. I know that we got a flyer in the mail from Russ, but I did not see that there was like any signage posted about the potential development. And if that's the case, does that mean that you guys have not paid any application fees?
So Shauna, I'll answer that one for you. So the reason you didn't receive anything from the developer is because we've not officially, it's not been filed with the planning department. And so the notices you received from the council office was me asking the council office, hey, I need help noticing this to the community. Can you send the notices out? So if this was to move forward, either in this current plan, a different plan, whatever, when it's filed with the planning department, and then you have the hearing at the planning commission, that is when the developers will send the notices and put the signage to let you know about the public hearing. So since we've not done any of that, that's why you've not seen any of those signs. Did that answer your question,
Okay.
Shauna?
Yes, that does. And I just have one more point, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okie dokie. All right. So my last point was just to piggyback off of the right turning lane that is desperately needed for our entrance. And because I have personally been rear-ended turning into my own neighborhood, and that was just a disaster, and it totaled our vehicle because people weren't paying attention coming up behind me. So that's definitely a safety concern. Oh, and I have one other point. I was curious if the developers have taken a look at the Bayview bylaws. Like, have you guys already gone through our HOA documents and reviewed those closely? I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I've never read your HOA documents now.
Okay, so if that is the case, then how has this development been drafted without the prior knowledge of the development that is currently here, the Bayview lot area?
They would be in two separate HOAs, everything. So I get the logic of what you're saying, but that's not typically how this works. But I do understand like what you're saying.
Do you plan on taking our bylaws into consideration?
I could, but again, forgive me, like with this whole single family thing, like this is the last time we'll ever talk. Like, so with the whole townhome thing, had we done that, sure, we could look at your bylaws. We could look at whatever's in there that you feel like is relevant that should be taken into consideration. But without that, and it's by right, it's less so your bylaws. It's more so, no, that's not a threat. It's just a statement. It's more so about Nashville's requirements. So, for example, Nashville, like in this zoning, we can't build a 3-story home, right? We'll have to build a 2-story home. We can't build a duplex. We'll have to build a single. You kind of get what I'm saying. So it'll be more based on Nashville's code requirements for the zoning. The bylaws of your subdivision are not something that another developer developing adjacent. That's just not really typically how that works because they're separate subdivisions. It's not like annexed or like part of your subdivision.
I understand. But at the same time, just respectfully, it kind of feels like we're being kind of bullied into agreeing that the rezoning would be our benefits, so those promises could be fulfilled, but that would only come after the rezoning has been approved and the process moves forward. But how do we stop, as residents of this community, what power do we have to stop the rezoning from progressing?
That's a great question. Hypothetically speaking, if how I choose to
oppose it.
Yeah, exactly. Hypothetically, if the way I chose to handle this meeting, which I'm not saying this is what I'm going to do, right? Okay. But let's just say I heard this meeting and I was like, forget that. Let's just do the townhomes, right? I need to think about what we all talked about here today, right? This was new information, okay? But I'm saying if I was just like, forget those guys, let's do the townhomes, to the point of what that guy just said, yeah, there's a real planning session where you will get a mailer, the sign does go in the road, and there's a hearing and it'll say, hey, show up at 4:00, whatever, and you guys could come out in droves and you could say, hey, this guy sucks, whatever, okay. And then let's just say it passes that, right? Okay, then it goes to council and same thing, there's a sign, there's mailers, and you can come out and you can say, hey, this guy sucks, and you can write emails to Councilor Bradford. So very, very preliminary. I don't want this to feel like it's just a train that can't be stopped. Like, this was the first station, this was the first checkpoint. You've been listened to, and I just need to regroup. That's the truth. We just kind of need to like process through everything that was shared here today and figure out what makes sense and what's still feasible. That's really what this comes down to.
Okay, Patricia, I've got 3 more hands raised. And then after we get those 3 individuals, then I will offer my closing remarks because it is already 7:30. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I apologize in advance if I mess up this name, but I've got a Afif Al Hassan with a raised hand.
Yeah, I'm trying to get unmuted here.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Afif Al Hassan, and I live at the end of Bayview Drive. My house is the last house on the left, right in front of the opening that the developer suggested to open. That opening was open before. And the reason they closed it because of the problems it caused. There is a lot of problems. It wasn't open as a road. It was just a grassland and cars were crossing over it, going to the gas station, going to, to Old Harbor, Old Smith Springs Road, and I agree with Mr. Doris. That Old Smith Springs Road is very narrow, and getting out of it to Smith Springs Road is not easy, especially if you're going left, and so that is a problem there. I bought my house because it's on a dead end. One of the reasons it's on a dead end cul-de-sac. My kids, my grandkids, they ride their bikes, they play in front. You're gonna take that away from me. The other thing is, there is traffic going to the gas station and they bring trash with them. This is current problem. They're gonna bring trash, and my front yard has, juice bottles and candy wrappers, and I go every morning and clean up. You're gonna bring something in my backyard. Also, they're gonna go to the gas station and they're gonna bring trash. So anyway, so that's the problem with this opening here. Also the opening here, you don't have to think about just Bayview community and your development community getting out of it. There is going to be traffic into it also. Not too long ago, the police chased someone on Old Smith Springs Road and they trapped him at the dead end. If it was open, they're going to go into Bayview community. And it's going to be an escape route. I've seen some that they did escape route through the driveway of your property or your development to Bell Road to exit, and they run away, and the other way around. And the previous owner of that property actually chased them out because they were using his driveway to get to Bell Road, or from Bell Road to come to Old Smith Springs Road. So that is a bad idea. That's why they put a railing next to my house to stop any traffic. And they put that hill and the trees. And my neighbor across the street put trees in his on his side where Old Smith Springs Road to stop traffic in and out. And but anyway,
no, I'm with you.
The next thing I want to talk about is what everybody was mentioning. You're gonna bring 64 units. On average, 4 people gonna live there. 270 people gonna live in my backyard. In a 6-acre area, that is about 50 people on 1 acre. You're gonna put 50 people on 1 acre with their cars, with their children, with their toys, everything. They're gonna be on 1 acre. And again, I agree with Shauna, getting into Bayview coming on Bell Road, turning into Bayview, coming from north to south, you know, it's very dangerous already. People are riding your bumper because they want to drive 50 miles to the light at Exxon gas station. You know, they riding your bumper, and you know, the road is not wide enough. Sometimes they swerve around you as you turning in, and that is very dangerous for them because they might hit the incoming traffic. You know, and you're putting an entrance next to an entrance and exit. I mean, how that is possible to be a solution? You're putting an entrance next to an entrance, and you have, you know, school bus, you have, you know, traffic in and out right next to each other. It's like putting two subdivisions in front of each other entrance, you know?
I understand everything as connection thing. That makes sense. That was just an idea. That was just kind of like, oh, I don't know, why is this like this? But it makes sense, and I appreciate you showing me the history of that. I didn't know that, of course, and that's super valid for like why.
And understand. You know that you're all about your pocket.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was a genuinely good idea, but obviously this is why we had this conversation, and of course that'll never happen if that's what you guys don't want. As far as the point about makes sense, and again, all I can say is that I'm hearing everyone talk about the townhomes not being preferred, and I've got to, you know, kind of just, but I'm hearing everything everyone's saying about that. Again, the connection was coming from just a suggestive place, not me trying to tell you what's what or what you should want or whatever. You know, it was just an idea, but I get what you're saying, and that makes sense. There's history there.
All right, Alice, you have your hand up. Do you still wish to ask a question? Or Mr. Hassan, were you finished?
Yes, Russ, this is for you. You mentioned that you'll be sending out notices as you discuss next steps. In terms of the notices that were sent out for this meeting, who received them? Because I got notified by my friend that lives in the Enclave development up the hill and not within the Bayview community. So how can I have subscribed to your newsletter, but the dates and things in there were a little confusing as well. So how do we going forward get a better communication stream to understand these changes? So if you would speak on that when you talk about next steps, that would be great.
Okay, I can go ahead and answer those right now for you real quick before we move on to Mr. Andy. So the council office sent out notices 500 feet from the edge of the property. So if you lived within 500 feet of the edge of this property, you got noticed. As far as future steps, one thing I've tried to do in the 6 years I've been on council is basically get embedded in all the community groups on social media as possible, so that when stuff happens, I can go directly to those communities and say, hey, heads up, we've got a meeting coming on, so that I'm not constantly have to rely on, you know, not everybody subscribes to my newsletters, not everybody subscribes to my council Facebook page. So, you know, I'm always looking for ways to improve connectivity and communication with constituents. And I didn't try in the past to get, you know, let into any Facebook or social media group for your community, but I was flat out told no, that it was only for residents only, and that those individuals would subscribe to my newsletter, and then they would disseminate any information that was sent out via my newsletter. So, and again, to the point I mentioned at the very beginning, I do apologize for some of that, you know, the incorrect dates on the emails. I was trying to get more information out there, trying to get more notice to folks any way I could. I do regret that some of those, you know, the dates were wrong, a couple of them, and I tried my best to get corrected information out there. And I called some of y'all back who called me to let y'all know, and I responded to emails. So, you know, I will own up to that confusion, and I do apologize for that. Now, I will go to Mr. Andy for his question, and then I will go to my final remarks.
Thanks everybody. So I've been listening to this as I was driving home, and I got home about 30 minutes ago, and literally I'm taking the right into the plaza. I mean, into our Harbor Lights, and there's two cars right on the back of me, and I know that I have to slow up because there's a little curve when you pull in, or you're gonna get hit there. There were 9 cars. I counted each one of them, which would go past where you're at. It goes past where that first house on the left is. And my biggest concern is that one, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting a turn lane. It's just going to have so much traffic, and you're going to have a right in there and then immediate left. You're going to back up Bell Road for quite a bit for the people that are going into your place, Patricio. And I know that that's not your expertise, but this is going to be more from Matt. What would be the process? Because I've been told that we can't get a right turn lane in because there's no room for it. This project does not seem feasible by doing that this project needs to be not residential, but maybe commercial, maybe put a Trader Joe's there or put something else where they could be a much better use of that area. And I think that the biggest thing, I think all of us at the end of the day, is that this is going to be a traffic disaster. Dawn has already been rear-ended and her car has been totaled because our road is not done correctly, and it happens every day. I am scared at night turning in. I put my turn signal on way beforehand. I start slowing down way beforehand, and people pass me all the time, and I'm fearful that they're going to get in an accident. I'm going to get in an accident, and if there's anybody there, it's just a bad thing. So, Matt, I'd love for you to let us know, like, what would be the planning on that. I know, like, if any of you, Patricio, I encourage you, Russ, I encourage you, Matt, I encourage you, come there during rush hour and take a ride into our units, and you will see how disastrous this will be. This will cause so many accidents.
Yeah, so I can answer part of that. And again, I will say NDOT has no position on this development, and we're not on the same side as the developers, or we have a duty to the constituents, and we have a responsibility to make sure that whatever developers bring our way, we deal with in the best way we can, given the rights that we have to affect things. As far as I know that apparently somebody, whether it was you, Andy, or somebody else in the neighborhood, had previously asked for turn lanes just at that intersection, barring any sort of other conversation. And I understand that was a no, given the existing space. However, if this development is coming in and they're part of one of the borders of that existing space, that gives us some potential new options. So as far as turn lanes, it is a no without any changes to the right of way. But with development coming in, there is a possibility for gaining additional right of way for expanding the roadway. So as far as adding additional improvements or expansions to that intersection with this development, it would be possible. Without this development, not really possible. Except for a specific, unique capital project that is funded through a whole other complicated system that I know the councilman was very familiar with. But so what I'm saying is once we actually get this development, whatever it looks like, whatever the developer decides to do with their property, we will be looking at it and getting an analysis of the data that is referenced and cross-referenced. Sorry, I was distracted by the chat. Reference and cross-referenced by additional engineers other than ours, additional engineers other than the ones that the developer hires, to see what improvements can be made and are made. I see in the chat possibility of a turn lane. I cannot give you a guarantee without having the data in front of me. You just have to understand the position NDOT is in. We can't guarantee improvements without knowing actually what we're working with here. But as far as developers making improvements based off what they're bringing to the area, that happens every day, and we require them to make improvements every day all over the city, more so now than we used to be able to. So the Harbor, Lights Drive, and Bell Road discussion completely on the table, improvements completely on the table. It just all depends on what the data is.
All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and offer my closing thoughts because it is 7:45. And I don't want to keep everybody on here all night. So rezoning and development in our community is never an easy conversation. It is a conversation that has to happen for our communities to improve and get better. One of the things that I have prided myself on is that 9 out of 10 requests for rezoning that comes to my inbox don't even get to this step. Because I take what I hear from the constituents from other meetings I hold throughout throughout the term and take that into consideration when developers reach out to me about, how about this? How about that? So saying that, also saying I want any development that happens in this area, I want development to happen for us and not to us. And that means any development that occurs, there has to be an equal, if not greater, positive impact to the community, and for it to go forward. And also, I don't like the idea of going with base zoning just for the fact that building 21 $600,000 homes is not going to help our housing shortage or housing affordability. But I also hear from the community that 64 units are probably too much. And there's been some great feedback, some great comments made by residents about turn lanes and other thoughts to this. So what I'm going to do is in the next few days, I'm going to have a debrief with the developer and we can discuss what we heard tonight, discuss like turn lanes and other options that were presented, if those can be worked into the plan to make it work a little bit better for the community. If that means reducing units so that we can add, more right-of-way space for turn lanes, et cetera, whatever that is. And then if the developer decides that they want to keep working on this to continue working with the community to make a final product, then any changes made, we'll have another meeting, show those updates, say, okay, based on the last meeting, based on the last input, here's where we're at.
And Russ, real quick, Councilman.
Go ahead.
Before you do that, if you're gonna give us another meeting, I need you to do us a favor. Don't just send out memos and postcards to people who are within 500 feet of the borderline area, because there are more than 100 units on Harbor Lights Drive that will all be affected by it. There's also another subdivision, enclave at Bayview, that will be affected by it because it's a one-way in and a one-way out. We would like to be informed about it. The only reason that this many people have showed up for this now is because a couple of people have went out and went door to door informing people. So a lot of people who were informed didn't get that. So we understand it as, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Please don't put us on the menu. We don't volunteer for that. If you could, y'all could chef this idea for real, because it's a horrible one.
Makes sense.
That's it.
Well, getting back to the communication, like I said before, I try to access as many ways and get in touch with residents as possible. So in the future, I would love to be able to get actually in y'all's, if y'all have a Facebook page, so that I can directly put this information into your Facebook pages, so that y'all are more informed. Like I said, I try to use everything. So I try to use email, social media, and the council office to try and get as many people alerted to this as possible. I had one more thought.
I went through and I was not able to locate where you had submitted a request to join the Facebook group. So if you do try to resubmit the request, I can approve that.
Yeah, if you can send me a link, because I've looked for it, and like I said, I asked for individuals to, help me get in, and I was told no. So if you can send me the link via email, russ.bradford@nashville.gov, I'll go ahead and submit that request.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that, Shauna. All right, so 10 more minutes, and I'm just going to finish explaining kind of the process. Again, this is not saying we're going to move forward tonight. This is if, and that's a big if. If I go back to developer and we talk everything over and they make adjustments and they make changes to the plan, like I said, the first meeting, If there were significant changes, then there'd be another meeting, because I want to ensure that everybody knows what's going on in their community. And so if there's changes made to what was shown tonight, then I would I would require basically Patricio to come back to the community with any updates. And if those updates still don't work, we have one or two options. See if there's something else, because I believe in my role as a council member is I've got two interests I'm trying to work with. You have developers who, as rightly mentioned on this call, they're doing this for money. That's their job. They are developers. But we also have communities who are trying to protect their community. I see my role as how can I get the two sides at the table and hammer out a compromise? Because at the end of the day, it's the community that lives with this, not the developer. And so both sides need to be able to come away with having gained something from it. So saying that if the developer decides they don't want to go forward with this, then we're done. If they decide they want to keep working with the neighborhood is still willing to work with the developer, then we will keep having as many meetings as it takes and as many meetings as the developer is willing to have.
Just understand this, Russ.
It took almost 2 years.
Vote you in power. Now, come on.
Well, I'm done after this term. I'm term limited, so you can say that to the next person.
So it doesn't matter. You don't care either way, right? That's what you just said. You don't care either way, right? That's what you just said.
So the comment was made that you'll vote me out. I would just let you know that my term on council is over.
Because you can't be voted out because you're done. See, that's
so if I didn't care, Daryl, if I didn't care, I wouldn't be on this call. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Okay, I'm just like everybody else. Somebody greasing your pockets. Have a good day.
And again, you're more than welcome to take a look at my financial disclosures that are located on Metro.
More one way to get money in your pocket. You can get paid for your children's admission to colleges. You can get memberships to country clubs. You can get all kinds of perks.
Patricio. So Daryl, you're being extremely rude. I've been nothing but professional and polite to everybody on this call.
Extremely honest.
I've allowed everybody to have an opportunity to speak their mind.
Yeah. And I'm trying to speak mine.
There's no need to make accusations. Daryl, you don't even know me. I don't have kids. I don't go to a country club.
I said
you've made a lot of assumptions about someone you've never met.
Different ways to get money. There's different ways.
Daryl.
You can look at the news to show you that.
Daryl, let's bring it down.
Can we
please stop? This is a homeowner. Please stop. This is John. If I can make one comment, and then we'll throw it back to Russ so he can wrap it up. The homeowners in the Bayview area were passionate about our neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that has been here for over 25 years. The intimacy of driving in here, we bought our houses because we liked it being a subdivision with only one way in, one way out. And so if there is going to be development, we would like a buffer between that development and our established neighborhood that we all love. So for the developer, take that in mind when you're doing this, because that is what we're passionate about. And I'll just leave it at that and throw it back to Russ so he can finish up the meeting. Thank you.
That makes sense.
Thanks for the comments. I made those notes. All right. So we're almost at 8. It's been a long night. I do appreciate everybody who took the time to sit on this call tonight and to provide your inputs and to listen. I will follow back up with Patricio in the next few days, see what he wants to do. I'll also advise, if you want to stay in the know, if you're not already following me on social media, it's at Russ Bradford on Facebook. You'll see me when I start posting in your Facebook page, and just follow me on social, but also go to russbradford.com/newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter. It comes out the first and third Tuesdays of every month. And so if there's any new development updates or any information, it's always in there. So those are 2 ways you can be proactive in getting involved. Again, I appreciate everybody for taking the time, offering your input. I really do care about this. This is why I'm in this role. Definitely don't do it for the money. $25,000 a year is not a lot. So I really do care about the community that I serve. I do want to make sure that any development that happens benefits the community, benefits the city. So if the developer's open to it and the community's open to it, we'll continue having these conversations. There won't be anything filed with the Planning Commission until I feel confident that we have reached a compromise, a beneficial agreement between both developer and the community, whether that takes another 2 months, another 2 years, or whatever.
That's not been clear.
Again, thank you, everybody. I'll let you get back to your evenings, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Again, Mr. Bradford.
He's off the